You wake up, you check your phone, and within 5 minutes you feel late. Not late for work, late in life. Someone your age bought a house, someone else launched a business, another got engaged, and you're just here, trying, moving, but somehow behind. Behind who? Behind what? And why does it feel so real? You don't actually know the timeline you're supposed to be on, but you feel it. Like an invisible clock ticking somewhere above your head. At dinners, when friends talk about promotions, you smile, but inside you measure. At family gatherings, when someone asks, "So, what's next for you?" your chest tightens. You answer casually, but later the question echoes. You start narrating your life in comparison. They're ahead. I should be further. I wasted time. This feeling changes your decisions. You rush choices you're unsure about. You overcommit to goals that don't even feel like yours, or you freeze completely. Because if you can't win the race, why run? Psychologically, this pattern links to social comparison theory. Your brain evaluates progress relatively, not absolutely. You don't assess your life in isolation. You assess it against visible peers. And here's the catch. Your brain gives more weight to upward comparison. People who appear ahead, rarely sideways, almost never downward. So even if you're objectively stable, growing, or doing well, your internal ranking system still signals losing. But where did this ranking system come from? And why does it override logic so easily? You're not ungrateful, you're not shallow, and you're not failing. You're responding to how the human brain tracks status and security. In evolutionary terms, social rank mattered. Belonging to the group increased survival, but so did relative position. Higher status often meant more resources and protection. So your brain evolved to monitor position constantly, not happiness. Position. The problem is, modern life turned that subtle tracking system into a 24/7 scoreboard. Social media compresses hundreds of life milestones into one scroll. Your brain interprets that as simultaneous progress, which it isn't, but the brain doesn't know that. It only sees signal after signal suggesting others advancing, and that activates something deeper than envy. It activates threat. So the question isn't, why am I insecure? The question is, why does my brain treat someone else's success like my own delay? To understand that, you need to see how time works inside the mind. Your brain doesn't experience time as a calendar. It experiences time as prediction. There's a concept in cognitive science called predictive processing. Your brain constantly generates models of how life should unfold. At 25, maybe you imagine stability. At 30, maybe partnership. At some point, achievement. These weren't conscious contracts. They were quiet expectations shaped by culture, family, and peers. Now here's the mechanism. When reality mismatches prediction, the brain registers an error signal. This is called a prediction error. And prediction errors create discomfort. Not because you're failing, but because your internal model was violated. Here's the mental model. Imagine you're driving using an internal GPS. It says, you should arrive by now, but you're still on the highway. The GPS keeps recalculating, and that recalculating feels like stress. The stress isn't about the road. It's about the gap between expected arrival and current position. Your brain interprets that gap as falling behind, even if there was never a fixed arrival time. Add to this something called the availability heuristic. Your brain overestimates how common something is based on how easily examples come to mind. If engagements, promotions, and success stories are highly visible, your brain assumes they're happening everywhere, constantly. So your internal GPS speeds up, and the gap feels larger. But here's what's rarely questioned. Who programmed the GPS? And can it be adjusted? You don't need blind confidence. You need recalibration. Here are 4 psychologically grounded shifts. 1, audit the invisible timeline. What to do? Write down the milestones you feel you should have reached by now. Then ask, where did this expectation come from? Family? Culture? One specific person? Why it works. Bringing implicit predictions into conscious awareness reduces automatic prediction error signals. When the prefrontal cortex examines an expectation critically, it can update it. Unexamined timelines feel objective. Examined timelines become optional. Example, you realize you own a house by 30 inches rule came from watching one cousin praised for it, not from your actual values. That awareness weakens the emotional charge. 2, reduce artificial comparison frequency. What to do? Intentionally limit exposure to environments that trigger upward comparison loops. Not forever, just strategically. Why it works? The brain's comparison system activates through repeated cues. Less exposure means fewer status-triggering signals. The amygdala calms when threat cues decrease. Example, you stop starting your morning with social media. Within weeks, the background urgency softens. Not because your life changed, but because the comparison frequency dropped. 3, track absolute growth, not relative rank. What to do? Create a private record of personal progress that only compares you to your past self. Monthly reflections. Skill logs. Emotional growth notes. Why it works. Shifting from relative comparison to temporal self-comparison activates intrinsic motivation networks. Research shows self-referenced evaluation increases persistence and satisfaction. Your brain starts measuring distance traveled, not distance to others. Example, you reread journal entries from 2 years ago. You notice emotional maturity that no one else can see. That recognition stabilizes identity. 4, widen the definition of on time. What to do? Consciously expose yourself to diverse life paths. Late bloomer, career changers, nonlinear stories. Why it works. The brain updates models through new data. When your mental library of life trajectories expands, prediction errors shrink. There is no single arrival time if multiple valid timelines exist. Example, you learned someone you admire didn't find their direction until 38. Your nervous system recalculates. Urgency decreases. Here's the model to remember. You don't feel behind because you are behind. You feel behind because your internal GPS is calibrated to a narrow map. Comparison feeds the map. Culture draws the routes. Prediction error creates the stress. So the work isn't running faster. It's updating the map. When the map changes, the pressure changes. When the pressure changes, your decisions become less reactive. You stop rushing relations. Stop forcing goals. Stop narrating your life as late. And something subtle happens. You move with more intention. Not because the race ended, but because you stopped assuming there was one. There will always be someone ahead of you in something. That's structural. But ahead is not the same as aligned. And fast is not the same as right. The feeling of being behind is often just a prediction your brain hasn't updated yet. So the next time it whispers, "You're late," pause. Ask gently, late according to who? Then notice the silence that follows. Because maybe you're not behind. You're just living on a timeline. That was never meant to look like theirs. And that might be exactly on time.